Hi. Thank you for coming to Under the Paycheck. I have Aleksandra here, who is an astrologer for the past 20 years. I am super excited for having this podcast. What is an astrologer for people who don't know?
My gosh, well, that's a great question. Astrologers do many things. It's kind of funny. I feel like we wear multiple hats, but astrologers primarily do two things. And the first thing is that their role is to support you in your personal development and reaching your potential. And we
Okay.
do that by creating what's called your natal chart. And so within your natal chart, which is based on your date of birth, the time, and location, we're able to identify the essences and the qualities that are part of your innate nature, seeking expression in the world, and to guide you as you learn to embody their strengths and the abilities that come with that. And also when you encounter the challenges.
See, when I think of an astrologer, I immediately think of birth charts and the 12 zodiac signs.
Absolutely. And that's part of it, but it's not the complete picture. And, the other piece to astrology is also forecasting. And so you also probably thought about newspaper horoscopes.
Back in the day, because that was like the only way to get like on the newspaper, not on a quick Google search, right? Is that kind of
Totally, totally. Or, in like a magazine or that kind of thing, they'd usually have the little horoscope section there. But in terms of like if we go back to the ancient ways of astrology, it's not like the kings and queens were sitting there reading their zodiac sign horoscope on the back of a scroll, although that
I
is hilarious imagery.
I heard that the Egyptians did look to the stars, and maybe it even goes farther back. I'm not too sure. I know a guy named Hermes is somewhere in the picture, but I get like totally lost in like the timeline of it all. But I believe also Egyptians were, I'm gonna say maybe you probably know more, but like maybe one of the first ones to like look at the stars and be like, hey, this is like in conjunction to like this, something like
I
that.
I love that you brought Hermes up. Oh my gosh, he is the originator of astrology. And
Okay.
and Hermes is said to have lived. There's conflicting accounts, but in the lineage that I work with, Hermes is said to have lived anywhere between 6 to 8,000 years ago. And the
Oof.
Egyptians certainly were one of the first, but they actually weren't the first. So they learned astrology through the Sumerians, who were a civilization that existed before them. And so the teachings of Hermes combined with the Sumerian teachings became what was practiced in Egypt. And then from Egypt, it traveled up into Greece, from Greece into Rome, and then it spread throughout the world. So, you certainly have a very accurate imagery in your mind of the
Hey.
origins of astrology. So I love hearing that because it's not very often that I encounter that.
I do love learning about like astrology, and I wish we could use it more in like business and such, because I have heard I'm very business orientated. I have a couple of
True to
businesses.
Gemini.
Thank you. But I would love, instead of business just being like all spreadsheets and invoices and appointments and numbers and deadlines, which all important, but I wish we could just sprinkle a little bit of like what feels like magic to me, like astrology.
Yeah,
Let's throw in some wonder in there. But I've read some studies that the most successful like businesses and stuff have followed like astrology to try to make their decisions on whether or not they should move forward with that contract or what day they should launch. Can that kind of be
totally.
true, or
That's totally true. And so that's actually how I work with the vast majority of my clients. So
businesses?
businesses and entrepreneurs as well. So in the beginning of my days, I actually started in more so of a private practice, guiding people in terms of growth, overcoming challenges, understanding their nature and purpose. And what I was doing was I was using astrological tools for my own business on the side.
Okay.
And I have. the spiritual practice that I do with the Modern Mystery School. And so I also have healing work that I do in classes. And other people were noticing how I'd kind of taken off with some of those things. And they were wondering how I did it. But I'd been using astrology to help me accomplish what I accomplished. And it really helped me because when I first started doing spiritual healing and teaching classes and that kind of thing, I was really young. I was 20, I don't know, 23, 24, something like that. And it was so easy for people to just dismiss me because I
Mhm.
was young. And on top of it, I live a sober lifestyle. So I don't drink, I don't smoke, I don't do drugs. So not only was I 23 years old, I probably looked like I was a teenager. And so in the beginning, I used to get dismissed a lot, but I was using my astrological transits to do promotions. I was using them to check on the back end of things. I was using them to release blog posts and when to time public events and advertising and promo and all of that. And so that's what I was doing on the back end. And so people started asking me how I was doing it. And that was how I started guiding other entrepreneurs using astrology. And it just continued to grow because fellow Gemini here, we're doing our little confession. I was always very, what's the word that I'm looking for here? There was the venturing spirit inside of me and I wanted to create my own business and so I started looking more and more into the astrological applications to business and also understanding the different kinds of businesses as well. Because similar to how we have zodiac signs, which have innate archetypes and innate natures, that also applies to the realm of business as well. So if you're in media or writing or that kind of thing, well, Mercury is absolutely going to be very important to the nature of that business. Whereas if, for example, you're working with the law or you're working with like manufacturing and those kinds of things. Well, Saturn is going to be very important to you because you're working within his domain. And so every planet has its what are called mundane aspects. And so when you start to understand the nature of the business and you start to understand the planets that are involved, then you can really begin working with the energy of your business.
You that was the craziest coincidence because I feel like I have never been aligned with what I'm like in theory supposed to be doing or what I could be doing to like make my life easier. But you just said two words of working in law and working in manufacturing. When I was 23, oh no, I think I was even like 21. I think I was 21. I went to school to study pre-law, criminal justice, paralegal to become like a paralegal. Could
Yeah,
not afford to become an attorney. That was a whole nother ball field. So I was like, I'll stick to paralegal. Went to go work at the courthouse. When I was first originally thinking of like what to study, it was like, oh, maybe I can get into like journalism. But then I was Googling like the differences of pay between like journalism and like paralegals. And it was like a draft, like almost like 50% different. And I was like, okay, well, law's always going to be around. So I'll try to take the logical approach and I'm going to go study law. But then when I got there, I didn't have any entrepreneurial. I was like, I'm going to sit in an office. I'm going to be cushy. My parents, half of my parents came here from like a different country and it was always like, just go to school, get a job, do that. And I was like, okay, no problem. I did it. I Every single person that I was working with was like 40s and 50s and 60s. I did not like their life. They had been there for 20, 30 years, which is like what my trajectory is supposed to be. Their 2-week vacation was a staycation. Their their weekends, they didn't go anywhere. It's like, oh. And it was this continuous thing of like when I did like the math and like our
that's
raises.
led to the Gemini soul.
So then I went and did my own thing and I manufacture furniture now. And now I have like a little furniture store and that's what I'm trying to pursue and it's going okay. But I'm like, this year, I want to like ramp things up. But it's like, wow, she says law and manufacturing, the two things I've like dove right into. I'm literally, before our appointment, I'm messaging new upholsterers and stuff for appointment.
Venus is actually also going to be important to you as well because there's an element of aesthetics and decor to what you're doing. So like you're not straight up manufacturing, a product. Like,
It's a bit
yes,
of
you're
a
creating
design.
furniture. So Saturn certainly applies because there's also materials that you need. You have suppliers and all of these things, right? And so he's still but Venus is also going to be very important because people don't really buy furniture for the features or like the stability of the wood that's used or that kind of thing. Generally, those are factors that you consider once you know you like the aesthetic. So
It's the
so
look.
Venus is definitely more important to your business in this respect, but Saturn is still applicable because there are things like resources that you need. Like when there's lumber tariffs, well, you're going to want to be ahead of the game because maybe there's certain lumber that you use or wood that you use in your furniture construction that maybe is, say, like a top selling product, but you can only bring it from out of country.
Yes, there's a lot of changes that have had to been made from out of country to now. What can we do right here? Because it's most likely just going to get worse. And maybe even bringing it here wouldn't be the worst thing in the world. Is it a little bit more expensive? Sure, but you're contributing to your
The abundance
neighborhood.
of
You're
your
contribute.
neighborhood. Yeah,
Uh-huh. You're contributing to
totally.
the people that you're going to see over just emails and never. Sometimes you never meet the person.
That's true. That's true.
This is this is amazing. You decided you wanted to become an astrologer at 23. Was there like an aha moment where you were like, I can make this into a real business instead of per se like maybe starting it off as like a hobby to like, wait, there's money. Like I could actually like do this because, everybody needs money to survive to a certain extent, but
Yeah.
I love that passions can also be like revolved around
Genuine
it.
contributions and that you bring abundance in because of actually contributing in a way that you're passionate about, right? And so my very first time that I remember this moment very clearly. I was actually playing tennis and there was this wish that just came out of me that said, I wish I could be an astrologer. And
Right.
I mean, I grew up reading my grandfather's astrology books. Astrology was my first love in life. However, I took a different path at first. So I went to the University of Toronto. I got my degree in physical education and health. I graduated. I became a kinesiologist and I primarily worked in motor vehicle accident clinics.
Oh.
And far cry from being an astrologer, right?
But very stable, there's accidents, what, a million times a day? Very
Yeah,
stable.
a lot of them. And so I was doing that in the beginning because it was where the stable paycheck was. Now, it wasn't much of a paycheck, to be honest with you. People who were working in restaurants were making more money than I was, and here I was busting my butt treating people. There came a point where I was like, that's it, enough of this. I literally I got, university education, and you want to pay me $12 an hour?
I was at 19, but my friend who was an Uber driver was making more than me.
Yeah,
Probably same story of origin of like, "What do you mean? What do you mean you're making more?"
yeah. I was
So
like,
you pivoted.
people without an education are making double or triple what I'm making. What am I doing?
How did you find your first client to like create that moment?
So I actually, because people knew about my love of astrology, and I was also a student at the Modern Mystery School at the time, and so some of my friends started asking me for chart readings, and I was like, yeah, I can do that. And so it started off as something that was fun that I would just kind of do for people, and then I started actually charging for the service, and it just kept growing. And
Really?
and as I became a practitioner, it often worked very well in tandem with a lot of the spiritual healing that I was doing, and it was a nice supplement to some of the classes and that kind of thing. And so there actually came a day, it was it was my first day back at work after the new year. Never forget this, 2010. And I walked in and this thought hit me and I was like, I never want to spend another day in here. And so as I stepped foot in the door of the clinic, I went right into the office and I quit.
You really took New Year, New Me to like
I didn't
a
walk
whole
into
level.
work having that intention. I did not. And I walked in and I was like, can't do this anymore. And so I literally went straight to the boss and I said, sorry, I quit. And I
Wow.
walked right out and I was so happy. I mean, I already had sessions that I was doing and people that I was working with, and I'd been doing it on the side. And, of course, it came with the self-doubt of, Alex, what the heck did you just do?
Yeah. Yes.
But it really didn't take much to replace that income with the sessions that I was doing.
With probably just like a couple clients in comparison to
Exactly.
maybe 40 plus hours that you had to do in the office.
Yeah. And and I know a large part of it also was that I couldn't help my patients the way I wanted to. So it wasn't all, a financial decision. There was also an element of, I guess you could say, torture, because my patients would be talking to me and most of their problems that they were telling me about had nothing to do with their injury. Like, okay, yes, their back hurt or whatever, but that wasn't the thing that was killing them. The thing that was killing them was the fact that, for example, maybe they weren't fully back to work. So they were on a partial return to work. So their income was reduced and that was stressing them out. Or maybe they had been very athletic and now afterwards their capacity to do what they used to be able to do is at 50% and they were going through self-esteem issues because they can't do what they were used to, or the stress of dealing with insurance and y- you know calls and all the paperwork and lawyers and all of these things. Very rarely did people actually complain about the pain. They complained about what their life was like after the accident and all the hardship that they had to go through. And 95% of it had nothing to do with their physical pain.
You know, you bring up a good point, and I think it's something that people don't really like think about. Is physical therapy like totally needed, and you need to be active and 100%. But for like example, I have an 87-year-old grandmother. She's very sweet. She's one of those classic grandmothers of like making sure that you ate and everything. But the moment she started having to like, rely more and more on a wheelchair, again, she's 87. We're hoping she's gonna like hit like 100 because I think she can. But it was more you'd go to physical therapy, you take your like medications, you do everything, but it was more of a mental thing that we had to try to overcome, or like, it's okay. You took care of us. We're gonna take care of you. No problem. Like, and in the first couple of days, it was like, I'm not doing anything. You guys are going to work, and then you're making dinner, and then doing the dishes, and then you're serving me. What am I doing? What am I contributing? Like, feel your feelings, 100%. Cry it out. Cry it out if you need to. It is totally fine. But we got you.
Yeah.
Like, she raised me since I was, like, a little kid and everything, and it's like, "You have one of the greatest granddaughters in the world. Don't you even worry about it," that type of, like, this is what you gotta tell her.
Yeah.
But it was more of a mental than even, like, the pain in her legs. Like, the pain in her legs would, like, thankfully go away with a couple of pills and done. But it was the mental of
Yeah.
how also me learning of like how can I make her feel like validated and not just be like, grandma, you're crazy, like, but let's also try to fix this. So I've never thought about how like physical therapists could think of like maybe it feels like I can't do much, but this is what I studied for, this is what I like. You want to be great at it, you want to be there for the patient, but you just can't with their
No,
emotions
and
and their
and it's also
family
not
and
in their it's not in their scope of practice either. That's actually not what they're supposed to do, right?
probably illegal at some parts.
Well, and this is where as an astrologer, that's where I get to step in because life is so multifaceted. And when I work with people in terms of forecasting, and I mean, especially business owners, your business isn't everything. And you still have a family, you have your health, you have other personal goals. And as an astrologer, I get to look at the sum total of everything that is happening because they don't exist in a vacuum. And so if you're having health challenges, well, I can't necessarily tell you what you should take or what you shouldn't take, but rather I can tell you about the opportune timing to prioritize your health. Because if you are in poor health, that absolutely affects what you do in your business. It affects your ability to make decisions. It affects your vitality levels, right? It affects how much you can show up for your family. With business owners and, professionals who occupy a lot of responsibility, positions of responsibility, I have the opportunity to serve them in ways that I couldn't do when I was working in the clinic.
Uh-huh.
So it's
That's
not like I
cool.
was allowed to talk to people about, oh, well, it's Mercury retrograde right now. Yeah, of course, the insurance company didn't get your fax, or back in the time when we had faxes, didn't get your fax, didn't get your email, whatever. Just send it again. It's going to be okay. Right? I didn't get to talk to them that way. Now I do. And it's just the biggest blessing.
I love it. Say you have a client. They find you on your website, they book an appointment. What would like the process generally look like? Is it me submitting my like giving you like my birth details, the time, the place, and then asking you like questions and we like meeting on like a weekly basis, monthly basis?
Yeah.
I don't know how quickly I think the planets move every month, maybe. Maybe every 2 months. I don't
Well,
remember.
they move all the time.
Okay.
So generally how I start off with people is I always start with what's called a natal chart reading because I want to understand the essences, the strengths, and also the biases that you come in with. Where are you going to need my support as an astrologer? Some people are super accountable. Maybe they have a lot of earth in their chart. And so those are probably the people that I'm going to have to remind to relax, to take time for
Okay.
themselves, be diligent, but honor yourself in the process, versus people who may not be as diligent about things or necessarily cognizant of things like deadlines and time and that kind of thing. Maybe they have a lot of air or water or whatever. So I like to look at the natal chart first so that I can guide you in the best way. Because especially in business, your nature 100% shows up in the business. If you are the
Okay.
owner of a business, your nature is in it. So whatever your own strengths are, that is absolutely going to show up in the strengths of the business. What makes it competitive? What makes it stand out? Why people love it? It's going to be those same things are in you. But where you encounter stumbling blocks, challenges, or where you get outcompeted by other businesses, that's also because of areas where you have not stepped into your strength. And so, there's going to be things that need to be learned, mitigated, brought into support in the right way. Because if, for example, you're not the most organized person, well, you're going to need that kind of support, and that can be revealed by the astrological chart. And then from there, I meet with my clients for forecasting. And in forecasting, this is where I keep them cognizant of everything that's happening. Because as I mentioned to you, Amy, you know, yes, they care about their business, and that's really important, but it's not the only thing that they care about. And so having a sense of everything that's coming up allows them to honor their priorities, to put in effort where it's going to be most effective, and to be cognizant of changes on the horizon so that they can adapt in good timing to either opportunities that are coming up or key lessons or challenges that they're either going to be facing personally or in their business. And so I generally meet with my clients quarterly. However, depending on how fast their business moves and how much they have going on, some clients I also meet with monthly.
See, this is bad. I don't know any strengths or negativities or weaknesses. I don't know, which is bad because I do run businesses. I have I run whole households. I run um
Well, I can tell you a strength right off the bat. You can do high volume.
high volume. Okay, that's good. I
And
can
you can
do
multitask. You can keep multiple things in your awareness, right? Now, that's also very Gemini, and you're a Gemini, so some of those are your strengths, right? However, Geminis often tend to be opportunists and often say yes to too many things and sometimes forget about things in the process or get overwhelmed.
I did notice that only because um I have like a good handful of friends who are very close, many, many years. We like grew up together. I can do like 10 things without missing a beat. But my friends, they can only do like one while I'm going to school and working two jobs and like, you know what? I'm gonna go get like a third degree, and I'm not gonna change anything about this. And I am gonna go take that trip to Mexico while doing all of this. And you know what? At the same time, I'm gonna adopt a puppy because why not bring a puppy with me to Mexico and like have the puppy? My friends will just be like, I can't work and go to school. I was like, what do you mean? I had three jobs and like three degrees at the same time. You could totally, because I want them to do good. I want
Yeah,
them to like succeed and school is expensive. So one way you get out of it is just working a bunch. And I was like, no. And I was like, what do you mean? It's like, is it easy? No, but is it doable and like sometimes necessary? Yeah, totally. But that's
absolutely.
that's what I was like, oh, something like clicks differently. And then I was like, oh, maybe it is air signs and like all of that. But I haven't met too many people that are in a sense like crazy momentum, crazy and like, yeah, let's do 10 things.
Yeah. Well, I can certainly resonate with that. Sometimes people kind of express a little bit of wonder at my life as well. Also a Gemini. So, but yes, I'm an astrologer. I also teach with the Modern Mystery School and I offer spiritual healing and classes on astrology, classes on um, deeper spiritual philosophy and hermetics. I also am a martial artist. I also moonlight assisting my partner as he runs his clinic. And of course, also with a dog, little French bulldog named Tank. Yeah. So, like you, hands in multiple areas, can handle high volume. And I had to learn about my own nature and bring in things like organization, structure, so that I could express myself in this multitude of ways because I love doing it. I just wanted to do it and be successful at all of it.
Yes. If they could do it, I could do it.
Yeah,
It's no big deal. Just successful at everything.
yes, absolutely. And I delight in the multifaceted expression of my life. It's all me.
See, I think we are kind of the somewhat of the same person, which I find fascinating. um in my pursuit of not trying to like just do timesheets and invoices and meetings, which I love. I have loved working in the furniture business. It has been great. It was never the plan, but hey, it's working with my schedule, it's working with my life. Let's go all for it. But in my pursuit of trying to like have a little fun and looking into like astrology and everything, one thing that I read, I don't understand my birth chart at all because from what I remember, a birth chart is like 12 pages long and it like shows you like every like planet and like how you are a bunch of signs, but they're in like different houses. It confuses me. So the only thing that I have understood is that for Gemini this year is supposed to be like a creative, like go into more into the creative realm this year,
Mhm.
which is why I started the podcast. So supposedly we're great at communications and like wording and everything comes out magically. So that's kind of why the podcast is starting this year. I do have like almost 300 videos published, but it was different topics. It was like day in the life, like following me for 5 years. This is the first podcast.
Well, oh my gosh. Well, this is
Yeah.
quite an honor. May this be the first of many amazing podcasts.
Thank you. Thank you. We'll see how it goes. I'm trying to align with all of it. But you're probably going to be the only person I tell that I did this because of the stars.
It's okay. It's all good. Oh, please. There's other people who would absolutely resonate and be on board with that too.
My first business decision based off of the stars. Have you noticed a specific zodiac sign that is more like it's more common to be successful? Like, is there
Hmm.
one destined for maybe not destined, but like easier where a majority of them are millionaires or have successful businesses? Or is that not how it works at all? And it's like all even.
I wouldn't say it's a zodiac sign. What I would say is that it's someone who displays high levels of discipline and consistency. And so there's a number of
Ooh.
ways that that can manifest in the chart. So, earth signs tend to be disciplined and consistent. If you have good aspects to Mars, that tends to produce consistency. Also, if you have either favorable aspects to what's called the midheaven or that also tends to make one disciplined and consistent in relation to their goals. And also, if you have a good relationship with the planet Saturn, same thing. So there's many things that can create that. So I wouldn't say that it's necessarily a sign, but rather it's that quality of discipline and consistency that really makes the difference.
See, this is where I need to learn more. I have heard of the 10th house,
Yeah.
but I have no idea what that means. Like, I don't, I remember one is like your career, one is your love,
Yep, so the 10th house
one,
is the house of career.
okay, 10th house is the house of career. But then, like a planet moves into that and it like changes it for that time.
Yeah, it brings its influence there, right?
Okay.
And so, like there's a difference between having a planet there as part of your natal chart versus a planet transiting there. So when a planet is transiting the 10th house, it brings its nature in. So say for example, you have Mercury transiting the 10th house, then it's bringing open communication in terms of your career. And so that's a really good time if you are looking for another job or if you want to negotiate a pay raise or if you are trying to set plans in motion to create your own business. Those are the times you do those kinds of things.
Okay. See, Google really needs to work on explaining. All I know so far is that we're going to have a great year, and necessarily how we're going to have a great year, I don't necessarily know. But I took it at its face value and I was like, "Great. I'm going to have a great year." How? I don't know. But
Well,
it's better
well,
than
that's
not having a great year.
absolutely. And that's where you would actually need a more personalized forecast so you can see the actual transits that are happening, because then you're going to know how, when, and why it's going to be good.
See, I could see why you have no problem getting clients because this already feels like it would be so useful of answering, like, if I'm ever questioning something in my life, in theory, it feels like you would have the answer. Like
Yeah, I
no
can
more
provide
questioning.
guidance. There's a lot of
Mhm.
things I can provide guidance for. I can't always tell people what they want, but in terms of things like timing and priorities or understanding deeper lessons that are available, absolutely. And so that's part of why I love what I do.
That's amazing. I don't want to take up too much more of your time. We are at like 40 minutes. I know we scheduled for like 30, so sorry. My last question I want to ask people is, are you happy in your career, and is your career able to provide you in a sense the life that you want?
Absolutely. I love it. I would not go back to healthcare.
I think that's great because if somebody wants to, you hear the same jobs, you hear the same, go be a nurse, go be a plumber, go work in an office. You don't ever hear anybody tell you, go be an astrologer. Go get your own client. I've never heard a parent say that, but it could be scary to make those leaps if you've never heard of a story, especially a successful story, because and you can do anything, but whether or not it's gonna be successful, that's where it becomes like, "Oh, should I do it? Should I not do it? Is it gonna be worth my time? Should I pursue plumbing?"
Yeah. And I always tell people there's a lot of money floating around in this world, and the possibility to support your life, to have abundance, to have goodness exists in pretty much any form you want. It's really just a question of, are you willing to put in what it takes to manifest it, as opposed to simply receiving it by checking in at someone else's manifestation?
Perfect. Where can people find you?
So they are welcome to join me or find out more on my website, astrologerroyale.com. And also, while they're there, I do have a free ebook, and it's called Star Powered Resilience. And it is a Zodiac inspired guide to understanding your gifts, your talents, your strengths professionally, as well as how stress impacts your performance. And my pro tip is if you also know your Mercury and Mars sign, you can get more nuanced information to support you.
Thank you so much for being on Under the Paycheck. I hope you have a good week.
Thank you so much. It was an absolute honor.